Well, let's talk about video games.
I don't know, man.
I
There
guess.
something did happen. Before we get
What?
into like the games we're playing and stuff like that, there was some Xbox stuff we kind of wanted to dive into.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ralph, would you mind intro and setting us up with that?
Yeah,
Because I
so
don't even know
basically,
what the.
Jez Corden, Windows Central, and now also backed up in part by Tom Warren of The Verge, reporting that Xbox is thinking about its hardware plans for next little while. So obviously we had that leak during the like Activision Blizzard lawsuit with the FTC a while ago. They talked about
Yeah.
like their plans to refresh consoles and yada yada. None of that ever happened. So obviously you always need to treat these sorts of reports with a grain of salt. But according to Windows Central, Xbox is planning to release a handheld this year. It won't be one that they themselves are making. It's likely going to be in partnership with a manufacturer like Asus or Lenovo, whatever. Tom Warren says it's Asus, and it'll basically be imagine like a ROG Ally, but essentially, but more Xboxy. So it's going to look like an Xbox, and it's going to, I don't know, have like an Xbox button on it, and it's going to be, most importantly, it's going to have like a UI overhaul with the.
That's what I want. That's
Yeah,
what I
well,
fucking
that's it
want.
exactly.
I
Yeah,
have a ROG Ally. I have a Steam Deck,
sure.
and like ergonomically, the ROG is so much better for me. And do you know who sent me the ROG? Xbox.
That's right. They did actually. I remember they did that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
Yeah,
right. They
yeah.
were into that whole thing.
and I love it. Don't get me wrong. I really love it. I take it with me everywhere because it fits in. It's way slimmer, just easier to transport around. And the one thing I hate about it the most is that it is Windows 11,
Mm.
and it's such a pain in the ass to. And obviously, like, very grateful to have it. I use it all the time, but like, I just wish there was a swap. And allegedly, the Steam OS was going to be coming.
Yes,
I'm not sure
that's already
when.
happening. SteamOS,
Yeah,
those
Yeah.
those units have already
free and
shipped.
clear.
Oh, have they? Oh,
Yeah,
sick.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But no, now, yeah. If there's an Xbox thing,
Yeah,
cancel
Well,
it.
that's what I was going to say is I would just use my Ally. I feel like I have so many devices that already do this, including with Xbox games.
yes,
Like even I use my Backbone still. Like I'm like, do
exactly.
I need another one of these? And I feel like the UI is probably not enough for me.
No. I
No, that's it.
was
You
gonna
know?
say, is it enough for me to buy something new? But maybe not. But if I was in the market for something,
Sure,
I
yeah.
I think that would be such an upgrade. My God.
Yeah, I
Like connecting, I mean, even Steam Deck. If I'm in a hotel and I'm trying to connect to hotel Wi-Fi, I can't do that through the Steam Deck UI. I have to go to the desktop, log in that way, and then go back to Steam because the pop-up doesn't work. And it's like all these little things that really, like, everything plays great. You can access your games fine, but it's in constant use where these little annoyances kind of come up. And you're like, man, I just wish someone would have thought of that. And a lot of it comes down to that user experience.
so you're saying that the
So.
user experience on the Windows machine is better
No,
than
as in both. It's like
both.
both
There's
of it is
both
like
have
there is
issues.
nothing. So I'm looking if they are going to be releasing something which also has these years of people using the
Sure.
devices, like that kind of research, like kind of, hey, what annoys you most about using this? I really hope that this is going to be something because maybe that could be the thing that sets it
Mm.
apart from your Steam Deck or your traditional ROG Ally or Lenovo. Like fix all those little things.
I think it might just be a thing to fill that specific customer need, where it's Xbox people big on the Xbox ecosystem, but also probably big on Game Pass,
Mm.
that maybe are hardware people looking at people with PlayStation that has the Portal, because like PlayStation fans that like embrace the Portal like went all in on the Portal.
Yes.
So I
People
do feel
love the
like
Portal.
it's proving that like Xbox fans would probably be very happy to have a similar option or a similar
Mm.
alternative. And I mean, it's probably the best way for them to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say
Partnering
because,
up.
like, yeah, and if you say, "Hey, it's a ROG Ally," that doesn't do anything to move the needle on the Xbox brand.
Yeah.
It's ROG Ally first that can play my Xbox games, right? It's not branded Xbox, so smart.
I'm
Makes sense.
also, I guess I'm also just sort of surprised in that looking at, I spent the last like month joining investor calls, like literally speaking to investors and joining calls about the games industry to see how we got into the position that we are in. And to figure out like what investors are telling people, and overwhelmingly investors are telling people to get out of video games and go into AI. Like that is like across the board, which is part of why I think Microsoft probably did the Muse thing that they did. Is like even if
Yeah.
it's not, they don't care. That just it's a stock market play. But everything that I can see from the Xbox strategy right now makes it seem like they really want to go mobile. And I wonder if this is an attempt for a gateway, maybe if it's like a means to like get the Xbox audience to be more okay with something on the go, so then they can eventually shift to mobile. Because yeah, from everything laid out about what they're currently doing and even what investor companies are saying, it seems like their long-term plan is to have people playing on mobile way more often. Just like kind of surprised, but if it's a go-between, maybe that's the strat.
Yeah, I guess xCloud also kind of feeds into that because they're always, hey, you can be playing this game on your phone. It does work really well, but I just kind of always forget that I have it.
Yeah, sure. In connection with this as well, this reporting also suggests that the next iteration of Xbox is out in 2027. They said that the plan has been greenlit, and that will include a new console and also a Microsoft-made handheld. So this one in 2025 will be partnered with Asus or whoever. Microsoft themselves are not making it, but new hardware launch in 2027 will include a handheld made by Microsoft. How do you guys feel about?
Do you think that'll be more switchy, where they're like compatible in a way?
Ooh, I wonder. I don't know.
Mm.
I mean, like, do you guys feel? Do you like? Let's say first of all, 2027 for next gen consoles. Am I wrong in thinking that just sounds fucking insane? Like,
sounds so soon.
That's 18 months away. That's not.
Wow, yeah, that's crazy.
But it's like
when you put it like that,
it's you can imagine that future. It's pretty soon, right? And it just seems like we're nowhere near this generation really like finding its stride at all.
No.
And to think about the idea of buying into the next generation just seems crazy to me.
I mean, Sony games have only just started being like PS5
only
developed, right? Like that's only just started to happen.
Yeah.
Xbox is obviously very different because the hardware is very different, but I think the iterations also make it feel weirder in that we've had a lot of little pieces in between. And we're having this conversation about handhelds right now, and we're just talking about PS Portal. Like, I feel like there's just been more stuff, but what is the usual life cycle? The previous consoles came out in 2022?
I can't remember the year.
2020.
Was it 2020?
The last cycle was a longer
It was 2020 because I had to go into the office.
Oh, you're right. It was COVID.
And it was COVID, and we were the only people allowed in there. No one else was allowed to take their mask off, and it was like a weird, weirdest shoot I think I've ever been on. But yeah, and then what? Like PS4 was 2013.
So 7 years.
2013, yeah.
7 years.
So I guess.
Yeah, but I think the reality is this generation is just different though. Like with this other generations have been defined by a steady release of first party titles that have really shaped the identity of a console. And this has just not had that, like first party Sony games. What are we talking? Returnal, like PS5 exclusive, right? Returnal,
Demon's Souls
are just a remake. God of War Ragnarok was
Ratchet
obviously last gen as well. Ratchet and Clank, sure. Spider-Man
2.
Spider-Man 2, yep. I mean, lots of like where's I don't know. Yeah, Returnal is really is Returnal the only new IP first party PS5 exclusive this generation? Is that the only one? Because Helldivers was a sequel.
Yeah,
I guess thus far, I think yes.
Unless maybe Ghost of Tsushima was like PS4. Yep. Yeah, so I mean, like, it just So I think the reality is that with game development timelines taking so long, that to keep that same cadence of hardware releases, it just feels very odd.
Yeah,
it just feels very odd.
AAA games take fucking 6 years at this point. Like, that's basically
a console generation,
like, just
which is insanity.
Yeah.
So
which is wild.
It does seem like
it's
something needs to kind of shift.
You're right. It feels different because the landscape feels very different.
Totally.
Even if it's the same amount of time. And I guess part of it is I don't know if hardware improvement rates are decreasing.
No.
Like they would constantly want to keep things up to date, right? But then I don't know. I don't know if that has actually increased in a significant way. Like it could be that they're trying to go the NVIDIA route and use AI like built into the hardware effectively as a means to,
and they will
maybe that's what it is.
They have to do that because that's where the in terms of performance, they all have to incorporate that in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, I mean, flipping a different way. So let's say, for example, Microsoft releases an Xbox in 2027.
Yeah.
What would it take for you to buy that machine? Like
I
what?
will always buy every new video game.
But like,
in
would you
hardware,
though?
personally.
Like for real though, would you actually?
Always.
But why though? Why would you buy a new Xbox in 2027?
Just because I work in the industry, I
Okay.
will always buy all new hardware. If I were to take off my business hat,
But
like,
even
and
just
think about
even-
it just as a consumer,
Even taking that, even within that context, why do you need an Xbox as a content creator in 2027? Just so you can say how the new Assassin's Creed game runs on the new Xbox hardware? Like, what other reason is there?
I don't have a good answer. It's that because I work in video games, I will buy all new video game hardware so that I have an understanding of what everything is. Like, that's really what it is. It's not like even as a content creator. It's like this is the industry I work in. I'm going to have all these products so that I know how all these products work. So it's a very outlier perspective.
I get my questioning is purely about, because I agree with you in the sense that like that's how we traditionally have to think. But now, as someone who is doing this, I genuinely think that I wouldn't need that machine unless I'm trying to provide information on. Because in the past, I've always had that like, okay, cool. There's exclusive games and there's the performance question and whatever else. But now with that exclusive question completely removed, the only question
True.
I would be able to answer by owning that device is how does this game run on this device versus any other. Otherwise, I don't need it unless there's anything I'm missing. Do you know what I mean?
Gamer score.
Yeah.
They're not taking that away.
The
One versus 100 exclusive.
Microsoft storefront experience. And I guess I'm truly trying to drill down to the root of my question, which is like, what would it take for you to buy that? If, let's say, taking your point, Alana, imagining you weren't working in this business, right?
Yeah.
What would it take for you to purchase that machine?
It's so I
tough.
really want to say exclusives. That's like so
Yeah.
hard to not give
Yeah.
you that answer.
Sure.
But it's so different now. Look, especially with everything being backwards compatible now, which obviously I'm dramatically in favor of. Like, don't want to suggest that that's a bad thing.
No, of course.
It does make it difficult to give you an answer. There is not a lot that I necessarily feel like is lacking from any of the experiences I have on anything else either, especially like I have a great PC and I can play a lot of Xbox games on that. I don't have a need
Yeah.
that, like, there is no problem that I need a solution for currently. The only one that I would feel strongly about, and again, isn't even from a consumer perspective, it's from an industry perspective, is that current hardware is potentially holding video games back. But that doesn't mean that if they introduce new hardware that they would stop making things also for the Series S
Sure.
or X. Like, well, the S is the problem, I guess. But that would be the thing that I would look at as a solution, is that there are reports from multiple companies saying that it can be difficult to port things onto the Xbox ecosystem, and maybe that would fix that problem. But that's not for me. But that is a problem that potentially needs to be solved.
Yeah, good
I don't know.
point.
Anyone else? Would you buy
I
one?
think for me, it would have to be a killer app. And the reality is, like, the way they're designing and they're going forward, they seem like they're leaning away business wise from having a killer app for the most part.
Yeah.
With them opening up the ecosystem so much, that's what will get me, because with the original Xbox, it wasn't like super on my radar until I played Halo, and then I immediately went out and bought one.
Absolutely.
I sold a lot of my comic books. I had like really good fucking comic books that I had to sell to get that Xbox. But yeah, it would have to be something like that. Alana, you brought up the tech, and it's interesting that, I look at just jumping over to PlayStation, the PS5 Pro doesn't feel like how the PS4 Pro did, where the PS4 Pro felt like, ooh, we got to squeeze a little more juice. We need this thing. The PS5 Pro feels like it's something that's like out, and then things have to like fall into it. So, if Xbox were to release something else, I think they also don't really have that like, ooh, like, I don't think people with their Series X is like, ooh, I need a little bit more juice out of my console right now.
Is it sad that one thing I was thinking of is like, what would make me, if I had, the money and I was looking into getting a new console, I'd be like, yeah, hey, if my Series X broke and then I could get a replacement, or depending on what the form factor of whatever a new Xbox would be. Like, genuinely, I think I'm at that stage of life where, I was painting today. I'm kind of taking a bit more pride in my
aesthetic
and my stuff.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be more trying to get things with a little bit more intent behind them. And so if the option is to get a new Xbox Series X, which is great, it served me well, or getting whatever this mythical new Xbox is, and maybe the form factor is a little bit more in line with what I have, because I like having my consoles out. I like being able to just see them.
Sure.
God help me, I hope the PS5 has I just need to go back to a box. I can't deal with it. But, maybe something like that would maybe convince me. It is so hard to answer this question without saying exclusives, Ralph. Screw you.
Yeah.
I mean, this is ultimately the problem, right? And it's just
You need to be going into Xbox. You need to be this person.
no. They
You gotta be asking Phil Spencer. and he's
Everyone
gonna be
already
like,
knows this. I'm not saying anything.
It's Skill Up's anti Xbox crusade. He's on it again. Such a fanboy.
This is
But no, I would
like,
feel the same if PlayStation was coming.
I mean,
out.
this is exactly
Like,
the same.
the same thing. Because
correct. If PlayStation said this, yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
where's the killer apps, guys? What have we been? Games have been taking too long to make. Because I have been spending so much more time on PC, I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm getting the best of both worlds.
I just think, like there's when it comes to hardware, as I said, as we talked about in the past, like the hardware in this business is inextricably linked to to exclusives, or traditionally. Like the Steam Deck obviously is not that, but the exclusive aspect to that is your like Steam library, which many people have invested huge amounts of money in over time. And there's many games that are PC exclusive. There are many games that are PC exclusives. And
Yeah,
this
they have
lets
that
you play-
the portal robots go to the moon or whatever.
Yeah.
Or the portal robots meet Frankenstein. Like they always have
Sure,
those.
absolutely.
That's
Yep.
exclusive.
So
Sorry.
so with Xbox not providing that incentive, it's like, well, what are we doing here? And there's no plan to change that. And market share is continuing to collapse for their new hardware. And they don't seem to be trying to change that narrative either. Like, this is an Xbox implies that your like fucking refrigerator is an Xbox so long as it has a screen and internet connection, right? So like, imagine 2 years from now where we go with that. And then imagine Xbox comes to you and says, guys, new console, let's go. You should buy our new console. Why? I already have an Xbox. You told me my phone is an Xbox. You told me my tablet is an Xbox.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you should buy the handheld. I'm like, well, I've got a Switch. I have a Steam Deck. I'm not sure what we're doing here. You know what I mean?
Let me put a hypothetical.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Let me put a hypothetical to you guys then. When I hear that, I still only think that like that console would appeal to enthusiasts, the hardcore Xbox ecosystem people that just want that new Xbox hardware. They're going to be around.
Sure.
But then we have them making a handheld where they're partnering with somebody else. Yeah. Do you guys foresee any possibility where their next console down the line is like a co-partnered collaborative hardware to maybe offset Microsoft essentially dumping all their resources into manufacturing their own new thing, since now it's less of a priority for them?
I can absolutely see a future similar to that, where like Steam years ago proposed the Steam Box idea, never really went anywhere.
Yeah.
And absolutely see that being where Xbox goes in the future. I mean, I've said many times that I view their hardware future being akin to like the Microsoft Surface, which is that, it's a product that they make. It exists, but it is not core to their business. It is an option that you can pick up if you want to, but
They're also
Microsoft
pretty good.
Say again?
They're also pretty
They're
good.
a good
too,
product.
like
Absolutely.
What
They're a
is
great
the-
way to enjoy Microsoft Word,
What is the Surface? Is what, the tablet?
It's a whole range of products.
It's a whole line, yeah.
They're tablety laptops, and they're
Because
they're
at
very
GameSpot
good.
we have the Surface Studio. That's what we did audio logs on.
Okay.
Yeah,
Which
those
is
are
like
cool.
a massive tablet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But outside of that, or being, an artist or an architect or someone who, like, for me, there is nothing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I just think that's where it'll go. And I think as well, and I said this in the news show this week, but like, I think we need to also remember where Microsoft's head's at now, where they're talking about, like, they made gross profit $171 billion last year as a company, right? They're not going to give a fuck about a third-party manufactured handheld device. Where's the profit margin in that for them? Like, they're not going to... Do they really care about the profit margin on console sales, given that their console sales are currently collapsing? There's no sign of that changing anytime soon. Microsoft care about, like, hardware-wise, Microsoft care about renting you their cloud servers, whether that's for enterprise or for
So
gaming.
then why are they doing it?
Because,
That's the
but
thing
what
that
I'm
gets
saying,
me.
like, I think, as I said, park it in the same bucket that you do Surface, which is that, like, they do it because it's possible. They can make a little bit of profit there. It's a nice little flagship device that kind of just, like, they can trot out when it's time for them to do consumer shows or whatever else. But how much money is the Surface business making for Microsoft compared to Azure Cloud Farms, for
Azure,
example?
yeah.
Don't they usually operate at a loss? Console hardware, doesn't it run at a loss at least for the first few years?
For the first few years, my understanding that's
Yeah.
been the case, and then they make it up. So again, does Microsoft want to run at a loss for hardware, hoping that they make a modest profit on the back end on year 6 or 7 if they get sufficient
I
market
mean.
share? I don't think so.
Mm.
So I personally am just of a view that none of this actually really matters that much at this point for Microsoft. I think Sony's console business, they live and die by that. Nintendo, they live and die by it. Microsoft, if their console comes out the gate and nobody buys it, I don't think it actually makes a difference to Xbox's overall strategy.
That's not their strategy anymore.
That's
they're
it.
not the console wars are over. Like it's not what they are trying to do is
Totally.
get as many people as possible to buy a Game Pass subscription and cloud-based video games, right? Like that is absolutely what they're trying to do. They're a third-party publisher at this point.
Yes.
Like, yeah, we can't look at the sales of the Xbox and say the company's failing anymore. It doesn't
No.
work that way.
Exactly right. It's the wrong metric.
And so yeah, it's actually just not the big deal that it was before, because it doesn't even matter to them as much. Like it just objectively doesn't.
I think
You're
that's
right
it.
that there will still be Xbox fans who buy them. Again, I will totally buy it. I'll buy any new video game hardware in that, and I guess part of that is just like I'm a fan of video game hardware, so I just have everything, and I always want to have everything. But I don't think that there is a need that it needs to be filled right now.
Yeah.
The Series X is still a really good piece of hardware. The Series S is very convenient. Like
Yeah.
still a lot of stuff I like.
At this point, my priorities have changed, where I'm just hoping that like whatever with the consoles, I'm like, hey, as long as you guys keep helping back and produce and fund games, I'm like, okay, like if we're not doing plastic boxes or it's deprioritized, like what's the most important thing at the end of the day? The games. So as long as they continue to do that,
Like
that's
those
what
Game
I wanna
Pass
see.
deals, ID at Xbox, like all of those initiatives where they are funding games and discovering games and promoting games in a lot of senses, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree.
Great.
Do you agree?
Yes, we all agree.
Maybe that's a good place
It's just
to
a
end
weird
it,
adjustment
because
period. We have to look at the whole industry differently now.
That's it.
It's just
Exactly.
whatever.
I don't think we need to look at the whole industry differently, because I think Nintendo, same business model. Sony, same business model. But I think Microsoft, very different business model. I think
But Microsoft could end up, maybe like things continue to change so radically and rapidly, especially with like how long it takes to make games, and those games being created actually outpacing the time of the hardware being manufactured. Maybe Xbox end up being this kind of like floating cloud publishing thing. They could be laughing at the bank at the end of the day, while all these other places are just still struggling to make their
I mean, yeah,
plastic boxes. Just as I'm
just
just a hypothetical, but
the amount of money that Microsoft has is truly unfathomable, and ultimately, most of the time, capital wins. Do you know what I mean? And so Nintendo and Sony definitely have a huge challenge in front of them by virtue of Microsoft's war chest. I mean, that's just a reality. I mean,
they're also just adapting to the needs of the stock market faster than the other two companies are. Part of like the current video game crash we're seeing is not that anything has crashed at all. It's just kind of plateaued, which is basically death on the stock market, right? It's still super profitable. But there is a need at this point for more gamers, and the data effectively says that casual gamers exist much less, and that is in no small part because TikTok or social media is stealing time away from people who would have been casual gamers.
Yeah.
Gen Z is not playing games.
100%. Where like we've
not
lost
picking
the
up games.
casual groups. There's no the average playtime per week for video games is actually increased, but I think that's because it's more specifically hardcore players. We've lost casual gamers because they're just being stolen by social media. Like the video game consoles are effectively competing with social media at this point, are also competing with Netflix, are also competing with every other entertainment industry. So I feel like Xbox uniquely is looking at it and recognizing that problem that the stock market has, and is being like, okay, what's the easiest way to make video games as accessible as possible? I think they're probably trying to pursue a world where like you watch a YouTube video. We've spoken about this for ages, like since Stadia days.
Yeah.
You watch a YouTube video, you just click a link and you immediately launch that game on your mobile device. Like I think that is what they are trying to do. And I hate that future, to be clear. But if it succeeds, it is definitely the most viable one on the stock market. It's just not working right now. Like it is most likely to succeed in the long run, because again, people are just being sucked into social media holes, and it's taking up almost all of our leisure time. Like I think it's something like the amount of time American adults spend on TikTok per week is like 100 million hours, like some insane statistic that used to at least go towards video games a little bit. People used to play a game for an hour in the evening. Now they just sit on their phone. So it's like the games industry and Netflix and all streaming services are trying to compete with all of that and don't know how to. So I think like the Xbox strategy of being like, okay, what if we put it on everything to make it way easier to launch a video game? I think will work out very well for them on the stock market in the long run, even though we all as gamers very strongly reject it because it's not the games that we like. But there aren't any more gamers left. Like they just have to figure out a way to get them.
We're gonna
It's
be
like
like,
a post-apocalyptic thing.
yeah.
How do we make more?
It's 2225. The gamers
children.
are
Children
excited.
of
We're
nerds.
running out of
It's children of
gamers.
men. There's no gamers. Yeah. How do we make more? How do we?
No. Oh,
How do we
hang
do
on. No,
that?
I got it. Bring back Xbox Snap and just have Subway Surfers on the whole time with like a Reddit story
Good idea.
being told. And you can game, but you can get your.
I
you can
love
get your
Snap, dude. That
Yeah.
Smart Glass. Just
Oh
bring it
my
all
God.
back,
Yes.
dude.
Yep.
shit.
Oh,
Bring
man.
back
With
Don
that-
Matrick. Maybe
Don,
not.
old
Maybe
mate
not.
Don.
He was onto
God
something.
bless.